We have the best job in the world. Doing these podcasts is just so much fun, and we get amazing guests. This episode, we got to interview Jeff Hancher, and when when we get to hear somebody who really walks the talk and really understands how valuable it is to help people on the teams at individual contributor level perform better, be happy about it, enjoy their work, all that all that stuff that we love to hear about, intrinsic motivation, psychological safety, great collaboration. This is a super fun episode. I wish we could have done 3 hours, but Jeff's a busy guy. Hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and pre-buy his book.
I'm super glad that we get to talk, because your perspective is different than things that I've heard before.
Mm.
Which, one of my things is get me different mental models. Right? I always want to hear different mental models, and you have a different mental model and I've never run across before. So I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. I need to talk.
Man, that's good to hear. Yeah, that's the goal. That has been the goal as well. Is man, if how we have always done it was working, we would have a lot better results. And so I spent several months thinking about this concept and built a workshop around this concept, and the workshop took off. And so when I was thinking about writing this book, I was thinking about my history as a follower and how this impacted me, leaders doing it that maybe didn't even realize what they were doing. And then I adopted it into my leadership style, and now I teach it all over the place and put it in the form of a book to help other leaders.
That is perfect. So my first question I always open with is, what's the origin story that kind of got you started down this path?
Yeah. This as far as the leadership passion, I guess it would be very important to kind of tee up the framework and who am I, like how did I get here, right?
Yeah.
The passion for leadership really came from the hand of leaders that helped me become who I am. I grew up in very dark poverty, the poorest of the poor. I had two parents that didn't work. I should say American poor. There's a difference, right? Sure. We weren't starving. I always had meals, all of that. But we were very, very poor. By definition, a impoverished family. Two parents that never worked a day in my life, a mom that battled lupus, a dad that battled chronic osteoarthritis. That led to, some bad decisions. As if the health issues weren't enough, there were other things that were going on. And it led to me and my brother being very dysfunctional teenagers, getting into a lot of trouble. When I graduated high school, Bill, I knew I wanted more, but I didn't know what it looked like. I knew college wasn't a great option for me. And so I went to the military and joined the United States Army. And when I transitioned, I was going to use the GI Bill to get the degree, which nobody in my family lineage had really ever done. Nobody ever went to school. And I was a couple weeks from starting school, and I got a call from my dad that I had gotten other times, which was they're sending mom home in hospice. And at this moment, he had to have his leg amputated. And so I put college on the back burner, went home, got the nurses established, but I needed to get a seasonal job. I was thinking 3 to 5 months just to help them get some bills paid, get the co-pays on the prescriptions paid. And so I went and, how we used to find jobs is you went and bought a newspaper and kind of looked at which one might fit you. And the problem was I didn't have a lot of skill, but I was a country boy from southwestern Pennsylvania, rural land. Grew up, working on farms, and I just needed a hard-working job. And so I applied to be a truck driver at Cintas Uniform Company in 1996. And what I thought was going to be a seasonal job ended up being a 24-year career. And, 11 promotions. I become a senior leader in that Fortune 500 company. And I don't tell you that to toot the horn of Jeff Hancher, but to tell you, I was the least likely candidate to ever have any level of success. But there were leaders that came into my life and offered this firm feedback that we're talking about. The difference was these leaders earned the right to give the feedback, and it literally changed who I became. And so that passion around this model is why I wrote the book, because I don't want any leader to miss this opportunity.
Wow. Okay, that is an awesome origin story. I love that. And interesting thread here. So I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force for 25 years. Um, I think there is a huge amount of value in learning about leadership in military organizations.
For sure.
And I don't think it gets nearly as much publicity, and people don't talk about that enough. And I don't think even vets, when they come out, don't talk about what they've learned in service. And yeah,
it's huge. And the thing about the military, one, it helped me mature. It gave me the accountability I need. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder. I was that young man. But here's what I also noticed in the military, because there's a very finite org chart and you'll do what you're told kind of thing. There's a difference. What I learned in the military was there's a difference between earned authority and appointed authority. And there's a lot of appointed authority in the military, meaning I'm your superior. If I say march, you march. But then there was these leaders in the military that modeled earned authority, meaning they already had rank, so they had appointed authority. But I witnessed that the leaders that I reported to in the military were the ones that didn't just rely on appointed authority. They relied on earned authority, which is the relational value. And this is what I talk about in the book is like, get your title and get over it. You know, the goal is not to be a boss that people report to. The goal is to be a leader that people don't want to let down. And that takes some work.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Okay. That's an awesome quote. That being a leader that people don't want to let down. That is an awesome frame. That's a great mental model.
Yeah, well, you think about this, Bill, and I would say this to all the listeners, especially the passive people-pleasing leader that's listening, and you know who you are, and we love you. If you were to think about your Mount Rushmore of leaders, these are the leaders that shaped your life, that without them, you wouldn't be who you are today. These are 4 people. You don't have to think really far. This could be a coach, a teacher, a family member, a boss, whatever that might be. You can think pretty quickly and be like, yep, it's them, it's them, it's them. So when you have this Hall of Fame leadership, your Mount Rushmore leadership, my question always is, were these 4 people tough on you? And the answer is always yes. They were tough on me. Yeah, then the follow-up question is, did they care? And the answer is always yes. So what we've proven here is that the leaders that have had the biggest impact on your life were tough and they cared. That's a formula that should prove to every passive leader that it's possible, because that's why you are who you are. So there's a formula here that we can become, hopefully, on somebody's Mount Rushmore and change their life, because at the hand of leadership is transformation. One of my chores growing up, Bill, was to cut squares out of metal coffee cans and pop rivet them to the floor of my car. That was a chore that I had. I haven't done that in a long time. We have a pretty decent fleet of cars. And I don't say that braggadocious. I say the reason that I was able to transform was because I had leaders that pulled out the potential that I didn't even know existed. They allowed me to borrow their belief in me that I didn't even have. And there's a way to go about doing that.
I love that. That is awesome. And, I've never thought about this, the idea of having a Mount Rushmore of leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to borrow that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's because, as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, it was one of my swimming coaches and my dad and one of my college profs. And I think the founder of the second startup that I worked for, those 4. Okay. So then here's the uncomfortable question. What happens if somebody doesn't get that experience of having great leaders in their life? Like, what's the remediation? Like, what do we do with them?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it, which is the fragile world that I talk about. There is a cost of getting this wrong. Hey, look, everybody listening right now, they're a product of one of 2 things: the feedback that they've been given, or the feedback that has been missing. We're a product of those 2 things, because at the end of the day, it's feedback, full stop. And when there's a lack of proper feedback, direction, expectations, accountability, this framework that I talk about, here's the result. You have quiet quitting. You have a $9 trillion a year problem.
Yep.
You have conflict with post-pandemic things like, are we coming back to the office or are we not? Well, if you make me come back to the office, I'm going to quit. I'm tired of being remote. I like it better in the office. I want to be part of a team again.
Yeah.
We're challenged with all of these things. Turnover, the great resignation. We're still feeling the effects of that. If you're a hiring manager right now and you're listening, do you have an open requisition? Yes, most everybody does right now. So acquiring talent is harder than it's ever been. Retaining top talent is harder than it's ever been. People, the YOLO, you only live once mentality. We have more generations working in the workforce than ever before that leaders are trying to navigate. This is fragile. Then let's tack on social issues, political issues, economic issues. I mean, we're dealing with all of this stuff as a leader, and leaves things very fragile. And so oftentimes what happens is leaders will default into feedback avoidance because they just don't want to rock the boat. But I'll tell you this, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Let's take your four on Mount Rushmore and let's rip them out of your life as if they never came into your life. Who are you today? And you're
Oh
not
yeah.
the same person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not.
There's so many. Yeah. There's so many things that would not have. I
Oh
wouldn't
my
have even
gosh.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would have.
I,
Yeah.
I might still today not know how to tie a tie. I might not know what a collar stay is. You know, I had a sales manager, Bill, that promoted me from truck driver into sales. And this guy kind of knew a little bit about my backstory, and he didn't embarrass me. He did it in a very humble way. And he said, hey, I learned this later that he told a fib, but he said, hey, I do this for every new person on my team. I want them to look professional. Now, I learned later he didn't do that for everybody on the team. It was his way of helping me through humility because he knew I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And so he took me into the restroom, Bill, and he taught me how to make a Windsor knot. And
Oh
he
wow.
bought me some collar stays. I didn't even know what those, I didn't know what those holes in your collar was for ever. He took me to Joseph A. Bank and taught me the difference between a sport coat, a blazer, and a suit. And that your belt was always supposed to match your shoes. Because now I'm in a white collar job. I'm a blue collar guy that grew up in poverty. This is new world to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a guy that would stay after work and teach me sales scripts and interest creating statements and how to overcome an objection with feel felt found. And he would jump in my car with me and observe me on sales calls. Then he would do some sales calls and let me observe him. Like now, I don't know if I am who I am if you take that sales manager out of my life. And here's the challenge to the leaders that are listening. What if you don't lead to your fullest potential? This transcends a business result.
Yep.
You're holding people back from reaching their fullest potential. And at the end of the day, that's what leadership is really about, is helping people reach their fullest potential. By the way, when you do this, your business is going to succeed. It's going to be hard to lose whenever you're giving that to your people.
That's another really good quote. You're just like full of great quotes. I love this.
I'm passionate
Awesome.
about this subject for sure.
Yeah. No, this is really really good. And I that guy that gave you that opportunity, you know, I think, was he able to clearly he trained you really really well, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the pieces of leadership that's missing,
Oh yeah.
right? Is what are the repeatable structures we use to help people move forward
Mhm.
at a very granular level, right? Like,
Mhm.
I love Simon Sinek's Start With Why,
Mhm.
and Leaders Eat Last. Like, I love those
Mhm.
philosophically, but okay, what do I do on a day-to-day basis? And what I love is what you're talking about is the answer to that question.
Mhm.
It's this guy taking you on sales calls and giving you coaching and teaching you how to tie a Windsor knot and the difference between different kinds of jackets. Like, that's really behavioral, and super inspirational. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, you know, if you're going to take big withdrawals, which we need to as leaders, you better be willing to make some deposits. And this
Right.
sales manager did that. I remember a day that I got a call from my father. So I'm about halfway through my rookie season of sales. My sales manager is telling me, like, you're having a record year for your rookie season. Like, there's a chance that you might make President's Club. And so things are going well. I mean, Bill, I was when I was a truck driver, I was making $21,000 a year, and life was good. Like, I'm talking about, like, my life had changed, and we had a 401k, and we had medical benefits. And when I started seeing salespeople and asking, what do these people do? By the way, these salespeople, they dressed kind of nice, and I like that. And they drove these real fancy cars. You probably have heard about them, Honda Accords. I mean, these
Wow.
things, I mean, I'm telling you what. And so here I am halfway through my rookie season, and I'm driving a Honda Accord, and I'm wearing the Joseph A. Banks suit, and I'm my performance is pretty good. And one morning I got a call from my dad, one that I had gotten many times in my life, which was, you need to get to the hospital. Mom's not doing good. And so I did what I always did, and I called my boss and I said, hey, I'm going to need a half day. Mom's in the hospital. I got to go check things out. No problem. Let me know how things are. Well, I'm glad that I went quickly, because this specific day was the last time that I would get to hold my mom.
Oof.
And she passes at the pinnacle of my career. The thing I've been fighting for, my why, Bill, was I never wanted my parents to ever have to cut a pill in half again to get from copay to
Mm.
copay. We were just looking at housing to get them out of that one bedroom apartment into an actual neighborhood. I mean, I'm making enough money now that I can give back, and everything I was fighting for was gone. And this old dysfunctional teenage Jeff attitude mentality bubbled up because I was angry. I was mad. How could this be happening now? And it led me into a dark depression. I didn't care about the Honda Accord anymore. I didn't care about the Joseph A. Bank suits. I didn't care about a President's Club. I had an attitude in the workplace. And this went on for a few weeks. And one day, my sales manager pulled me into his office, and his opening line was this: enough's enough. I've given you time to
Mm.
grieve. And listen, you've told me time and time again that one of your biggest motivators is that you don't want your children to have the same life that you had. And I'm watching you throw that away. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. So you have two choices. You can either change your attitude and become the person I know you're capable of being. But if you choose not to, you won't be able to stay on my team. You have 24 hours to let me know what your choice is. But this has got to stop. Now, the old teenager, rebellious Jeff normally would have said, I didn't ask you, pal, and walked out the door and quit. You're not going to tell me. But I thought for a moment, this is a guy that genuinely cares. He wants to see me win. Look, he would have been well within his rights to say, look, your numbers are slipping and you're falling below quota, and for that reason, I'm writing you up, and if it continues, you'll be fired. He would have been well within his rights. But it wasn't about the business results for him. It was about
Right.
making sure that I climbed out of this valley. And I will tell you, man, that conversation rocked my world. Now think about this, Bill. Post that conversation, I was promoted 10 times in that company. I left equipped to start my own business and make impact to leaders all over the world. Now, I wonder, had my sales manager that day, in that moment of time, had not earned the right to give me that tough feedback, would I even be who I am today?
Yep.
We'll never know. But I can tell you this, he did. And he earned the right. And it was the kick in the pants that I needed to reignite what was possible. Leaders, there is somebody that's going to come across your path that is going to need you. They're going to need to borrow your belief in them. And it's going to come at the hand of setting expectations, clear and reasonable, giving great feedback consistently, and then holding them accountable when they need it. Every human needs accountability. Every human. Let's not put up speed limit signs if we're not willing to write some speeding tickets. What good are they? We would never take them seriously. There has to be accountability. With the right framework, even the most passive leader can have the confidence to do this. The most aggressive leader won't just be making people bleed. They'll make the deposits. Right in the middle is where healthy leadership lives.
That is very cool. You are a really inspirational speaker.
Thank you, Bill.
Like that's really good. Yeah, like I'm impressed.
Well, this is why this is why I quit the job in the company I loved. And I mean, I loved Cintas. I was tracking to retire there in my early 50s. I was on the cusp of a promotion. I had a very large unvested stock portfolio, and I left it all to do this because
Wow,
this is what I'm passionate about. And this is where I want to make my mark on life.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things as you're talking that I'm thinking about that is like all the different people that I've worked with, that I've worked for, leadership peers that I've seen who they didn't have the self-confidence to provide the kind of feedback you're talking about.
That's right.
And they definitely didn't have the confidence to be thinking about how do I help my people get better, like
that's profound and true.
Yeah. It's so, I have to credit my early mentors with giving me this mental model of my job as a leader is help my people get better.
Yeah.
Like that's the game, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't hear that often enough.
It's true. Yeah. And this
And
confidence thing, I'm telling you, it is a difference maker. And how do we, when you lack confidence and you go to somebody that has confidence and you say, I need to be more self-confident, typically what you hear is, look, just be more confident. What's that even mean? Nobody even knows what that means. One of my favorite quotes is, if you lack confidence in self, you're twice defeated in the race of life. But with confidence, you have won even before you start. And I believe that to be true. When you have confidence that doesn't bleed into arrogance, you are in this place of, it's my duty and obligation to serve in this manner. If you know CPR and you're in a grocery store and somebody says they're not breathing, help, 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 and you know CPR, you're running to lifeless body and breathing life into it. Is that arrogant? It's not arrogant. It's an obligation. You are in a state of readiness to attack the biggest problems. Leaders, whether you're carrying confidence or not, two things that will raise up your confidence is what you consume and who you surround yourself with. Don't just consume and don't just surround yourself with. You need both. If you want to be a great golfer, you can read the book that Tiger Woods wrote. Does that make you a great golfer? No, it doesn't. It makes you knowledgeable about the game. But if you play with Tiger every Sunday, you're going to get great at golf. Leadership is one of these things, I believe, Bill, that it's better caught than taught, which is why when we're putting this book out, we're not just putting out a book. We're putting out curriculum. We're putting out videos. We're putting out webinars. We're creating a launch team. We're doing all of these things because I'm not here to help people win Bible trivia. I'm here to help leaders become more confident to execute on what they know. Knowing is the start. Execution is where the real confidence starts to come into play. That's what we're trying to accomplish for people.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's I kind of wonder, you mentioned growing up rural, and I kind of wonder if part of your confidence is that you've like riveting pieces of metal into the floor of your car, right? Like there's stuff that you've done so that you've got a really broad skill set. And I wonder if leaders that don't have confidence, they're too narrow. They don't have that breadth of experience, and so they don't know how to do enough things to be able to feel confident in themselves.
Yeah, well, you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody listening that battles imposter syndrome more than me. And that's always shocking for people to hear because I speak with conviction. I speak strongly. I'm a polished communicator. This is through years of training and being deliberate and intentional to grow. But I can tell you, I battle imposter syndrome all the time, all the time. I grew up in poverty. I have a poverty mentality. I never went back to school. I don't have a college degree. What if they find me out? What if I'm really not qualified for this? What right do I have to leave my job and start a business? I've never started a business before. I don't know how to podcast. I've never done a podcast before. By the way, who would ever listen to me? Why am I writing this book? Who would ever read this book anyway? Well, who am I to be writing books? I battle this stuff all the time. And if you're listening and you're like, yeah, that's me too. Here's what I do when that demon creeps into my mind, which is often. I remind myself of all the wins that I've had, the people that
Yes.
I've impacted. If you look back on your history, you got some wins. You have some wins in you that have made impact in the lives of other people. Celebrate those wins. Sometimes it's not a touchdown pass. Sometimes you got to fight for a yard and rest in that small win to get that momentum and start rebuilding that confidence. But I will tell you this, the best way to never lose is don't play. Just don't play. Don't play. You'll walk out of this world with a perfect record of never losing. But imposter syndrome and a lack of confidence in a healthy way, it's an indicator of growth. Because when you learned how to ride a bike, you were scared to death.
Oh,
But
yeah.
then you learned how to ride a bike, and somebody was like, let's set up some wood and wooden crates and let's start jumping. And you're like, that seems kind of scary. And then you went to a motorbike, and then you went to the road on a Harley. You kept advancing, and every time you advanced, you were a little bit skittish, but you were growing in that craft. You want to grow as a leader. You want to grow in your profession. You want to travel the road of attaining wealth and influence and whatever it is you're chasing. Then there's going to be some fear that comes with that. Because as you advance, you're remedial again. And then you
Right.
get expertise, and then you advance and you're remedial again. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, I love that. There's two things that we talk about that you're completely nailing. One of them is values and priorities, which is the why of why you're doing this stuff, right? The advancement. And clearly you've got that, like a big sign on the wall in front of you of this is what I'm going after. And the other thing is the emotional resilience skills. And clearly you've figured out, even if it's an unconscious competency, you're doing that really, really well of, oh, I've got this goal. I know it's going to be scary. I'm going to put myself into the place where I'm afraid, but I can do it. I'm in the discomfort zone, but I'm not in the panic zone. Right. And so I'm going to do that uncomfortable thing till I get competent at it, and then I master it. And I really like hearing that because very few people talk about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is obviously your expertise, Bill, is this battle of the mind.
Oh yeah.
It can be
100%.
your own worst enemy, but it can be
Yep.
the very thing that differentiates you from everybody else. I mean, this
Exactly.
fragile world we're in, it's full of adversity. Hey, great news leader, this is your time to shine. The more chaos there is, by the way, when you signed up to be a leader, what you signed up to was to be a problem solver, was to deal with chaos. Like whether they told you that or not, that's what you signed up for. There is a real fragile world with real challenges, and there's going to be leaders that step up and solve the world's biggest problems, and they're the ones that are going to have the biggest influence. I mean, you think about this mindset of a trauma surgeon. A trauma surgeon, their job is to handle, acute injury, bullet shots, stab wounds, head-on collisions. They've trained for 15, 20 years to be good at what they do, to move very quickly, diagnose problems, and save lives in a moment. Now imagine that you're a trauma surgeon, you're in the ER just waiting for an ambulance to pull up so you can do what you do best, and days go by and there's nothing. And weeks go by and there's nothing. And now months are going by and nothing. And you say finally one day, I'm sick and tired of this. And somebody says, you're sick and tired of what? I'm sick and tired that there's no ambulance showing up with people getting shot and stabbed. And they say, what? And then you're the trauma surgeon, you say, yeah, that sounded kind of weird, didn't it? Did I just say that I want people to get shot? I didn't really mean it that way. But I'll tell you what, if people aren't getting shot in this town, I'm moving. I'm going to go where people are getting shot. You know why? Because I have a solution to a problem that most people don't. So I got to go find the problem so that I can solve it. When we have that mindset as a leader, we no longer see this as happening to us. It's providing an opportunity for us to make bigger impact. That's the leadership opportunity. And we have that in abundance right now.
Oh yeah, we definitely do.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I'm like, I could talk to you for hours. Okay, this is just because the level of detail that you're at, I rarely hear. Like, it's just, the reason that we started 40% Better was because I couldn't get the level of detail that I wanted. Where were you 25 years ago when I started down this road?
You're right.
That was because that's what I wanted this level of detail, right? And yeah, that's fascinating. I love this. I love this stuff that you're doing. What are you like broad across the board, or do you focus on any kind of specific industries, company sizes? Like,
no, currently the answer is no. Some of my mentors are telling me I need to do that. And they're right from a business standpoint. I should be doing that. But my heart is telling me, serve as much as you can. Don't focus on an industry. I got clients in the healthcare space, technology, insurance, finance, manufacturing. It's all over the place. And there's very few places I won't travel to do a workshop or a keynote. Why? Because I want to make as much impact as I can. Now, what I will tell you is I will always give preferential treatment to a bigger crowd, not because I need a bigger spotlight, because I want to make bigger impact. This is a people thing for me. The more people involved, the more excited I get. So no, I don't have a niche industry that I go to. If my schedule was open and there were 5 people in a room, I would do it. Now, that's pretty rare these days that I have that freedom to do that. But if I had an opening, I would 100% do that. Why? Because it's an opportunity to serve people, and I'll do it.
Yep. I love that philosophy. I really, that the servant leadership activity that you're doing is such a rare thing to hear, right? And you keep saying that over and over and over again about leadership as serving the people to help them operate better.
Yeah.
And that's one of our foundational mental models.
I love that.
And at the same time, I'm always surprised when I talk to people and that idea has never crossed their mind. And I'm like, what do you, what do you think your job is?
Literally. Some people do think, I think some people think their job is to bark orders and tell people what to do. You could be heavy on the accountability piece, but very low on the feedback piece. This makes you a micromanager. When you're heavy on accountability, but low on feedback, you are a monster. What you're driving in your culture is compliance, not engagement. I saw a cartoon recently, Bill, made me laugh out loud. It was the leader standing over the desk of an employee, and the bubble over the leader's head was, "Why aren't you working?" And the employee responds, looking up at the leader, and says, "Because I didn't see you coming." And I think that is like an amazing picture of like, hey, if I knew you were coming, I would have acted busier, right? But here's what we know about highly engaged cultures is that these are cultures that have leaders that say everything that everybody does here has purpose. It matters. Everybody knows clearly what the expectations are. We believe that the expectations are reasonable, they're fair, that every employee has been adequately trained to meet or exceed the expectation. And by the way, every employee understands why meeting or exceeding the expectation is good for them, not the balance sheet, not the stock price, of why it's good for them. And then that leader meets with them consistently and gives them feedback. Hey, you need to get a little bit better here. Try this. Do that. These were our SMART goals. You're falling behind on your timeline. Feedback. When I do these things as a leader and that tough conversation that I'm dreading, heart beating, chest tightening, sweating palms, boy, it makes that conversation a whole lot more effective than just whacking people with the stick. That used to work when there were more people than jobs. Well, that day's gone. Like, you got to earn the right to keep people in your organization, and you have to earn the right for them to want to work for you. Quiet quitting, that means I'm going to do as little as I possibly can and still get a paycheck on Friday. I'm not actually going to quit because I need the money, but I'm going to do very, very little. You would never see an entrepreneur do that because they're attached to the why behind it.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not
Yep.
saying our employees should feel or act like entrepreneurs, but they should have some skin in the game and they should understand their purpose in this. Not
100%.
easy. Simple framework. Not easy, but very possible. No question
Right.
about that.
Right. Yeah, that's what the intrinsic motivation that you're talking about there is something that I've always tried to see that happen with my people, and give them the freedom to change their roles, kind of like you went from driving a truck to being a sales guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because the thing that I've seen over and over again is, if I give people the opportunity to do what they want to do, I get way better performance. And to your point, they act like an entrepreneur inside the company, because I'm giving them the freedom to do what they want to do, and it makes it super easy to get high performance out of them when they're doing what they want to be doing. Like, it just seems like a no-brainer to me.
No question.
And I'm always asking my people, because I'm a huge fan of doing one-on-ones every week.
Yep.
Short, but like, I want to hear if their interests change.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do next?
That's good.
And that's, I think, partly knowing they have that freedom has them trust me more.
Yes.
And then the next level is when they go, oh yeah, I'm kind of curious about, going from working on the back end of the software to the front end. I'm like, great, well, let's figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because you're awesome in the back end. You'd be great over there.
Yeah. This opens up a whole new world.
Exactly.
A whole new world from people. And
Yeah.
I'll have leaders sometimes say to me, Bill, they'll say, Jeff, I agree with everything you're saying, but you don't know my team. I mean, these people, I especially hear this from blue collar leaders. And they'll say, yeah, but you don't know my team. I mean, these are some rough people. They got black hearts. They're pretty calloused. Like, they don't even look at me in the eye. I always tell those leaders, listen, on the inside of every human being is a soul, a heart, and most people, a desire to do a little bit more. What might happen, what might be happening, by the way, we're dealing with people that have issues and challenges that we may know nothing about. They may have been hurt by former leaders. They may be recovering from leadership abuse, an abusive dad, an abusive parent. We don't know what they're going through. Think about this. We're driving down the road. We see a stray dog. And I mean, you can see this dog's rib cage. It's starving. Like, it's probably moments, days from death. So when we see this dog, we have compassion. And so we go over to the dog. And here's what you would never do. Hey, Skippy, it's me. I see you're in kind of bad shape. Why don't you jump in the car? I'm going to make a good life for you. And the dog just jumps in and we live happily ever after. That's never how that story goes. If you went over to the dog to try to help it, the likelihood of it biting you is really high. And the dog bites you. What do you say? Hey, I'm just trying to help. No, you understand the dog is scared. So what do? You run to the store, buy a ton of snacks, a warm blanket, you come back, you start feeding the dog snacks. And you're not feeding it by hand, you're throwing it because it's not even getting close.
Right.
But all of a sudden, it realizes you're not there to hurt it. And so over time, the dog gets a little bit closer because you're throwing the snacks a little bit closer to yourself. And finally, you're able to get one hand on the dog without it biting you. Then you start petting it a little bit. And the dog says, wow, maybe they're not going to hit me. And you throw some snacks in the car and the dog jumps in. Why? Because it trusts you. Now I've earned the right to transform the dog. We will do that for an animal. I'm talking about human beings.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been beat. Maybe they've been hurt. Maybe they've been diagnosed with a terminal disease. Maybe they have a child battling substance abuse. Maybe they need a leader that'll figure that out.
Yep.
And help them get there. What an opportunity.
Yeah. Dude, you are an amazingly good speaker. Holy cow.
You, Bill.
That was like, woof. You keep doing these stories. I'm like, oh my God, he totally gets it.
I think people will remember a story versus a framework.
Right. No, I think
which I'm about framework. I got it. It's all through the book, all through the curriculum. It's all there. But when you think about it, I hope right now, just telling the dog analogy, somebody's like, yeah, that's Joe on my team, actually, probably.
Yeah.
Because that's a real person.
Right,
And if
right.
I
No,
can just make you a leader pivot a little bit and say, maybe I need to take a different approach with them. Because all
yeah,
feedback's not the same. We know this.
right,
It's not
right,
the same. There's collaborative feedback, there's directive feedback, there's supportive feedback, there's all kinds of feedback. You just need to know that all feedback's not the same. You need to know what each feedback is and when to use it so that at least when the moment comes, and it's coming, leader, you're going to know how to deliver it. You might
right.
not be great at it. But look, the first time you got up to do karaoke, you weren't great at it either. You had to watch the ball, right? But over time, you didn't even need the screen anymore, and you're doing choreography and everything else. But you got to start somewhere.
I'm horrible at karaoke.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay, this is awesome. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm paying attention to the time, and you probably need to go talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all your contact info in the show notes. Real quickly, what's the easiest way for somebody to get hold of you? If they're
Yeah.
like, hey, I want Jeff to come to my company and like, I want to talk to him about what he can do for my teams.
I would love to do that. You can find anything you need to know about me at my website, jeffhancher.com. It's Hancher like Jolly Rancher, but it's with an H. The book, it's in pre-order now. I don't know when this show's being released, but the official launch is June 17th of 2025. Firmfeedbackbook.com, firmfeedbackbook.com. If you go there and buy one single book on that website, you can fill out your name. And just by buying one book by June 17th, we send you an interview that I did, chapter by chapter of the book, why I wrote the chapter, what I hope you get out of it, and how to execute on what you learned in the chapter. We're also going to send you the leadership playbook. This is a curriculum, if you will, so that you can then read the book. We got case studies in there. We got application activities. We got questions to provoke thought. You can do this as an individual. Or maybe you're a senior leader listening and you're like, that's what we need for the whole team. You get that with the purchase of one book. And then if you'd like, you could be a part of our book launch team. We're doing live webinars, live Q&As from now till about the third week of June. So firmfeedbackbook.com, I would love to be a part of the journey with you all.
That is awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy a copy of the book.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the support.
Yeah, no, well, like I said, I'm always looking for what is new, what is a different way. I'm a big fan of having as many tools as I can in the toolbox, and because situations require different tools at different times, and I'm
question,
totally loving what you're doing, and I think there's so much opportunity to improve how leadership is happening in the world today. That like I'm a raving fan of anybody who's really operating in a way that I believe is going to make things work better. And everything you're saying, I'm like, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I had
Thank you for
I'd be doing a little dance routine.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's very encouraging. I'm certainly passionate about it. I've seen it work in my own life as a follower and as a leader. So I know, now I'm not going to be talked out of that does this work. Like it absolutely works. And hey, look, maybe you're like, look, I'm not buying the book, but this guy sounds fascinating. I have a podcast that comes out every Thursday as well, the Champion Forum podcast. Pop me in on the treadmill or on a drive, and I'll talk to you while you're running and
Nice.
be on the journey with you that way, maybe.
Cool. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the opportunity.